Hi, I'm James Fuller and I'm a professional Microsoft Flight Simulator pilot. What? No applause? Wow, okay, tough crowd. Today I'm answering the internet's most searched questions about MSFS 24, except we have the budget of a meal deal. Okay, first questions. Is MSFS 24 an update? Okay, straight in with the identity crisis. No, MSFS 24 is a standalone simulator. It's a completely separate purchase, separate install with new tech and refinements underneath. Essentially, think of it like EAFC or the F1 franchise. Every installment is its own game. It's bought completely fresh, and owning last year's gets you absolutely nothing off of the new one. This is Microsoft's version of that, just on a 4-year cycle rather than a yearly one. Well, that was easy enough. Is MSFS 24 better than 2020? I think personally this one has changed over time, right? If you'd have asked me on launch week when half of the planet was probably staring at a loading screen that refused to load, I'd have probably laughed you out of the room, right? But it is 2026 now, and the sim you install today is a completely different animal. For example, the default fleet actually has some systems depth instead of just being cockpit shared ornaments. Career mode as well exists, and it is sometimes fun in bursts when it's actually working. More importantly, we are seeing a lot more developers catch up and releasing products exclusively for MSFS 24 now. Nearly every airport and aircraft that I've ever reviewed on this channel in the past year is either 2024 native or properly updated. So yes, it's better than 2020 now. Is MSFS 24 worth it? Okay, so short version, for most people, yeah, probably. And I'm sure that I'll end up coming back to this one at some point. But if you're new to the sim, this is the easiest recommendation in the hobby. The standard edition costs about the same as some payware aircraft, and Game Pass means that you can try the whole thing for the price of a takeaway. If you're settled in 2020 with copious amounts of add-ons, the real question is whether your hangar made that jump, and only you can really answer that. Is MSFS 24 crossplay? Mostly. PC and Xbox users share the same servers, whether that's a Steam player, a Microsoft Store player, and a Series X player. All of them will be flying in the same sky essentially, and you can group up together and there would be no fuss at all. PS5 though is sadly on its own little island. No crossplay, no cross save, and nothing you bought on the Microsoft side carries over because the PlayStation version doesn't run through a Microsoft account itself. So if your mate flies on the PS5 and you're on the PC, you'll be waving to each other but from completely separate universes. Is MSFS 24 multiplayer? Kind of similar to the last one I guess, but yes, and it's on by default. The shared world means that every player is out there right now, which technically makes this some sort of MMO, which nobody ever actually speaks to each other, and everyone is flying pretend planes into Heathrow. You can also set up group flights with friends, race them in challenges I believe, and silently judge their landings, which is what most people do with me because the man whose sign off is try not to crash has, on several occasions, actually crashed. Is MSFS 24 good on PS5? Oh boy, okay, Jesus Christ. Bit of a mixed bag here I suppose. It's okay, decent even probably I'd argue, but it's a long way from the PC version. It launched in December alongside Sim Update 4, which means PlayStation players have skipped through the entire miserable, painstaking, annoyingly frustrating first year and walked through into a patch sim. You absolutely lucky sods. What? I'm fine. MSFS 24 on PS5 targets a steady 30 frames per second on the base PS5 and the Pro, unlockable if you've got a 120Hz TV. But on PC, this sim lives on its ecosystem. Thousands of free downloads are available on platforms like Flight Sim TO, whether that's your liveries, freeware airports, or utilities. The drawback is on PS5, you only have the in-sim marketplace, which means that you're essentially locked to anything payware with a lot less flexibility. My biggest advice is, if you're going to play MSFS 24 on the PS5, the menus are clearly designed for a mouse, so if you have one, plug it in. And I'll also say, your internet matters even more than when you're on PC, since everything is streamed. But yes, the honest version is, if PS5 is your only way into this sim, it is a good one and the sofa is a lovely place to fly from. If you plan to own a capable PC as well, then I would say personally, wait and then jump in though, every single time. Is MSFS 24 on Game Pass Premium? Yes. In fact, that answer recently got even better. It was a day one Game Pass title, and since last October, it sits on the cheaper premium plan as well as on Ultimate. One nuance though is that your marketplace purchases are tied to your Microsoft account. You own them outright and they follow you between both Xbox and PC. And if Microsoft ever decides to leave Game Pass, which I also highly doubt, you will need to buy the base sim to reach all of your add-ons again. Essentially, you own the books, but Game Pass owns the bookshelf. How is MSFS 24 on Xbox? I'd say it's probably in a better state than it actually was. 2024 is able to run complex add-on code on console, which is why aircraft that used to be PC only, the study level stuff, whichever that word means this week, now is available on Xbox too. And buying the Xbox version automatically gives you the PC version through the Microsoft Store. The problem is performance. On a Series X, general aviation is pretty nice enough, and if you've got a 120Hz display, the unlocked frame rate makes low stress flying pretty smooth. But when you load a properly heavy airliner, the performance just isn't there. Playable, sure, just not PC. And as you can probably tell already, if the Series X has these problems, the Series S has an even tighter squeeze. And whichever you're on, everything is streamed anyway, so your internet does matter a lot more and does a lot more of the heavy lifting. Peripheral support is decent as well, so you're not stuck flying a 737 with a thumbstick unless you enjoy the suffering. Okay, great, so that's the is questions done. Now let's look at the does questions. Does MSFS 24 have ATC? Yeah. And it's probably the worst part of the sim. What ships in the box is something that's barely evolved from 2020. It can't sequence traffic properly, it descends you like it actually hates you, and the voices still sound like a sat-nav having a full-on breakdown. The actual answer is third party. If you're on PC, Beyond ATC gives you AI controllers with more natural sounding voices that can handle an IFR flight to a much better standard. Say Intentions does a similar job on a subscription model, leaning harder on the AI voice tech as well. But if you want real humans, that sim is free, it's solid, and it's mildly terrifying at the same time for first timers. But yes, back to the question, does it have ATC? Sure. Is it any good? No. Third-party companies are much better at it. Does MSFS 24 support VR? Yes, on PC anyway, full support for all major headsets, and it remains the single best thing that you could do in a flight simulator. It's also one of the single worst things that you can do for your frame rate, so expect to sacrifice some of the settings to the performance gods. On consoles though, Xbox has absolutely nothing, and PS5 owners have that PSVR 2 promise, although there is a beta that is showing some promising signs. Does MSFS 24 have shared cockpit? No, it doesn't. Not natively, that is. The actual answer is mods. Your Controls has been the community's go-to for absolutely years. FS Copilot is another option, which is slightly newer for MSFS 24 specifically. That's also free, and it drops itself into the community folder on first run, so there's no real faff in the setup. Both of these need you and your friend to be on the same aircraft on the same exact version, and then one of you flies while the other one argues about radios and flaps. FSX had shared cockpit in 2006, just saying. Does MSFS 24 update automatically? Yes, I suppose. Mandatory ones, in fact. But they only ever hit between sessions. Nothing is going to yank the sim out from under you at 38,000 feet, for example. What it will do is ambush you at launch. The sim has this supernatural talent for dropping an update at the exact moment you've got like 90 minutes free and a flight completely and utterly planned already, and you're not going to be getting this done anytime soon. All I would say is buy a fast drive and make some tea. Does MSFS 2024 ever go on sale? It does, yeah, actually. It turned up in the big Steam and Xbox sales more than once since launch, so if you're patient, and absolutely, you could probably find a neat little discount there. Which is actually pretty useful for me, because it was on sale is my main legal defense when Mrs. Fuller audits the bank account statements. What? Don't pretend you don't do the same thing. Does MSFS 2024 work on Linux? Not officially, and Microsoft naturally has shown zero interest in changing that. I mean, why would they be, right? Unofficially, the Steam version does run through Proton. The catch is more centered around everything around the sim itself. For example, getting a HOTAS recognized turns into a weekend project involving forum threads and UDev rules. If the phrase UDev rules just made you feel something, you will be completely fine. Everyone else, just stay on Windows. Cool, that's done. Next pile, the what questions. What MSFS 2024 to buy? Okay, so there are 4 versions, so I'll rattle through them as quickly as I can. Standard gives you 70 aircraft and 150 handcrafted airports. Deluxe adds 10 aircraft and 5 airports. Premium Deluxe takes the fleet to 95, and then the Aviator Edition stacks 30 of the Microsoft published marketplace aircraft from the 2020 simulator on top of all of that. My best advice hasn't ever really changed. I do not think anything above standard is really worth doing, especially when you have the option to buy aircraft individually through the marketplace, as well as the missing airports if you ever want them. Not only this, but if you're really serious about the hobby, payware generally replaces the default content anyway. And if you're not that serious though, Game Pass exists and costs way less than deciding wrong. So standard, stick to standard, nothing else but standard. What is the best VR headset for MSFS 2024? Okay, so I don't have much experience with this, but I will say that from what I can tell online, and a lot of people have highly recommended the Quest 3. And the biggest reason for that is the lenses. Older headsets had a tiny sweet spot, so unless your eyes lined up perfectly, everything went blurry around the edges. The Quest 3 uses instead pancake lenses, which stay sharper edge to edge, and in the flight sim that can make a really big difference, especially when you're glancing over at your instruments. But distant scenery through any headset will be softer than a monitor, so don't expect the same crispness. And if I'm being completely honest, the headset is the cheapest part. You'll probably need at a bare minimum a 4070 Ti or higher. Upscaling too, like DLSS, has a lot of blurriness, especially on the glass gauges, but it does do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. And if you want to step up from that, the Pimax Crystal Light is where most simmers go. It's getting on for double the pixels per eye, and it plugs straight into your GPU over DisplayPort. Whatever you pick, buy the headset that works best for your GPU. What is the MSFS 2024 community folder? It's the folder essentially where every add-on and mod you install from outside the marketplace lives. For example, freeware from Flight Sim TO, or payware airports and aircraft, liveries, weather add-ons, all of it goes in there, and the sim loads whatever it finds in there at startup. It is also, and I can't stress this enough, the first place that you would look when the sim is misbehaving, which can be quite a lot to be fair. Emptying this folder is essentially Flight Sim's version of turning it off and on again, and it has genuinely solved more mysteries on this channel than any other single act. What is GSX for MSFS 2024? Okay, so Ground Services X, or GSX, is arguably one of the most well-used add-ons in MSFS. Without it, you spawn at a silent gate and nothing touches your aircraft until you taxi away. With it though, a crew turns up and puts the bypass pin in, then pushes you back along a set pushback route representative of real-world ops. Boarding takes real time, and on supported aircraft, you watch the cabin fill seat by seat while catering trucks from a pool of 230 real brands work the other doors. There's refueling, de-icing when the weather turns, a follow-up car if you want one, and a docking display guiding you onto the stand at the end of all of that. 654 ground handling liveries picked automatically by region, crew voices with 18 regional accents. I will say it isn't as essential for the GA crowd, but it is very close to essential for everybody else. What is WASM for MSFS 2024? Ah yes, WASM, those beautifully gorgeous orange screens of doom which appear when your aircraft's brain falls over mid-flight. The boring name is WebAssembly. It's the sandboxed way third-party code runs inside the sim. So when your payware aircraft has an FMC doing real calculations rather than pretending, that's WASM doing the work. The orange screens are what 2024 shows you when one of those programs stops responding. The sim keeps flying and technically your controls keep working, but the avionics just freeze. And believe it or not, like actually as a funny side of things, that is an upgrade. In 2020 there was absolutely no warning at all. As for why it happens, essentially, the sim occasionally hands an add-on's module bad memory, so the module collapses. It isn't a bug specifically, it's just the sim platform itself. Granted, both Asobo and developers have been chipping away at it to try and improve the stability in the sim, but it is still a long way off.
But James, what is the point of all of this then?
Well, as I said, most, if not all, complex aircraft use it to give us greater depth and simulation. But even more importantly is that WASM is the only legitimate reason complex aircraft even exist on Xbox at all. A console only ever allows code it can contain. So yeah, WASM is a complete pain in the ass, but it's a necessary evil, unfortunately. What is rolling cache MSFS 2024? Okay, so rolling cache is essentially a slice of your drive the sim uses to store the world data it streams. So places you often visit load from your disk instead of pulling from the servers every single time. If your internet is quick enough and stable enough, you can honestly probably leave that alone a little bit more. You need some, but you don't need it as much. If though it's a little bit more temperamental, point the cache to your fastest drive, give it a sensible chunk of space, and your home airport stops re-downloading itself every single session. Okay, the next one's quite relevant as well. Okay, so what is the best graphics card for MSFS 2024? Okay, so this one is going to be a little bit harder to answer, but all I would say on this one is VRAM first and model numbers second. Because 2024 literally eats video memory for breakfast. And I would say, and I only say this because I am on a card with 12 gigabytes VRAM, that 16 gigabytes seems to be the sweet spot. That probably points you to things like the 5070 Ti and upwards on Nvidia's side, or AMD's 9070 XT as the value pick that keeps embarrassing pricier cards in this sim. Don't get me wrong, 12 gigabytes is completely fine, but fine includes me constantly checking the VRAM counter like it owes me money at the biggest sceneries. Essentially, buy more memory than you think you'll need. That's all I'm going to say on that. Why is MSFS 2024 so laggy? Okay, so usually that's like 4 suspects working together. 1, it's a streaming sim, so shaky internet breeds more stuttering that looks identical to a GPU problem. That's what the rolling cache is essentially for. 2, the CPU itself. 2024 spreads work across your cores, so when you have too many sliders at max value in a heavy aircraft at a busy hub, the processor is undoubtedly going to struggle. And that's largely another reason why your GPU is sitting there at half asleep like an old age pensioner waiting for the kettle during an episode of Countdown. Number 3, VRAM. Run out of it and 2024 completely becomes a slideshow. Trust me, I know. And 4, self-inflicted wounds. LOD sliders too high, AI traffic maxed out, at a heavy airport, in a Phoenix. We've all done it. The fix is working out which of these 4 is actually yours before throwing more cash at the wrong one. And even then, I will say that I don't think anybody has ever figured out any of the common reasons MSFS 2024 becomes laggy. Not even Asobo themselves, which says it all really. Why is MSFS 2024 so bad? This actually has to be my favourite question in this entire video, I can't lie. You can literally feel the rage bait behind it. Somebody who's clearly typed this at like 2 AM in the morning after a crash to desktop, and I completely get that. Here's the honest answer. This search in some ways is only here because of the absolutely horrific launch. November 2024 was thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, or even millions of people staring at a loading screen while the servers literally melted. And the internet correctly torched it for that. And some of the anger has, in fairness, stayed valid. Default ATC is still poor. The marketplace lets AI slop and low quality products in front of consumers. Crashes still happen. WASM instability, poor optimization, career mode shipped with bugs that took a chunk of time to fix. The sim today though, I feel is not the same thing that earned this search. A year and a half of updates has genuinely changed it. The issue is that the search engines themselves remember longer than the fixes. Why is MSFS 2024 so bad will keep autocompletely for years to come, long after the answer ever moved on. Thank you internet, that was actually kind of fun. If you want to keep watching stuff, watch this video next, and I'll see you in there.